How are you guys doing? Today is Tuesday, December 8th, 2020, out here in this quarantine. I'm James Sims, and for this episode of The Elite, I'm going to take you through yesterday's matchups, some of which in the NFL. And of course, I will preview the rest of the games, the last game of this week, Champions League soccer, and everything that's going on with college basketball in the meantime. Starting off with yesterday's performances, going to the first one. The Pittsburgh Steelers hosted the Washington football team, and the Washington football team came in. They were down by a touchdown in the fourth quarter. And they were able to tie it up with 9 minutes left and then get 2 field goals by Dustin Hopkins to take this game and win it and to give the Pittsburgh Steelers their first loss of the 2020 NFL season. Looking at how both teams fared for the Pittsburgh Steelers, their starting quarterback Ben Roethlisberger was able to complete 33 of his 53 pass attempts, throwing for 305 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a pick. Yeah, of course. Ben Roethlisberger had a pretty big game. And then on the ground, their leading rusher was Anthony McFarland Jr. He had 15 yards on 4 carries. As a team, the Steelers were only able to get 21 yards on 14 carries on the ground. Through the air, their leading receiver was James Washington, who had 80 yards on 2 receptions, one of them being a touchdown. And Deontay Johnson finished with 71 yards on 8 receptions. He had the other receiving touchdown from Big Ben on the day. On the defensive side of the ball, Avery Williamson was the team's leading tackler. He had 9 total tackles on the day. TJ Watt would end up with 6 tackles. He ended up with a sack as he's had an incredible season up until now. And their lead safety, Minkah Fitzpatrick, would finish with 3 total tackles on the day. Looking at how the Washington football team fared, their starting quarterback, Alex Smith, would complete 31 of his 46 passes, throwing for 296 yards and a touchdown. Peyton Barber was their leading carrier on the ground. He had 23 yards and 14 carries as he had a touchdown. The Washington run game was only held to 45 yards on 21 carries. Great job by the Steelers defense. And through the air, their leading receiver was Logan Thomas, who had 98 yards on 9 receptions, and the only receiving touchdown in the game for the Washington football team. Also, Cam Sims finished with 92 yards on 5 receptions, and J.D. McKissick, in addition to his 8 yards on the ground, he finished with 70 yards on 10 receptions. They gave him 78 total yards of offense on the day. And on the defensive side of the ball, John Bostic was their leading tackler. He had 10 tackles on the day. And he also finished with the interception. Great game from him. And the Washington football team was unable to register a sack for the entire game, but they were still able to beat the Pittsburgh Steelers. After being down 14-3 at halftime, they were able to outscore them 20-3 in the second half. With this win, the Washington football team is now tied, or they have the same record as the New York Giants, but because they lost the head-to-head, they are sitting second in the NFC East. They are now a game and a half ahead of the third-place Philadelphia Eagles, who currently sit with a tie. And in the AFC North, following this loss, the Pittsburgh Steelers still have the best record in that division, and they are tied with the Kansas City Chiefs for the best record in the AFC. That's currently what's going on with that game. And then jumping to the very last and final game of the night, the San Francisco 49ers hosted the Buffalo Bills, and the Bills came into town, were able to beat them by 10 after a big 17-point second half, which saw them take a 17-7 lead. And then both teams would end up scoring 17 points in the second half. The Buffalo Bills were just able to keep this away, and the big difference being their super big second quarter, even though they were down at the end of the first quarter. For the San Francisco 49ers, their starting quarterback, Nick Mullins, would complete 26 of his 39 pass attempts, throwing for 316 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 2 picks. Their leading rusher on the ground was Jeff Wilson Jr., who had 47 yards on 7 carries. Through the air, Brandon Ayuk was their leading receiver. He had 95 yards and 5 receptions and a touchdown. Deebo Samuel had 73 yards on 6 receptions, and Jordan Reed had a receiving touchdown. He had 32 yards on 3 receptions with that receiving touchdown. And then Kyle Juszczyk, he would finish with the third passing touchdown of the game. He had 6 yards on 1 reception to go with his 5 yards on the ground, giving him 11 total yards of offense, and he had a receiving touchdown to his name. On the defensive side of the ball, Jason Barrett was their leading tackler. He had 11 tackles on the day. And Dion Jordan with his 3 tackles. He had the only sack of the day for San Francisco. Fred Warner finished with 6 tackles on the day, and he also recovered a fumble for the team. For the Buffalo Bills, their starting quarterback, Josh Allen, would complete 32 of his 40 pass attempts, throwing for 375 yards and 4 touchdowns. On the ground, he also had 11 yards, which would give him 386 total yards of offense. Devin Singletary was their leading rusher. He had 61 yards on 18 carries. Through the air, their leading receiver was Cole Beasley, who had 130 yards on 9 receptions. Stephon Diggs had 92 yards on 10 receptions. Gabriel Davis had 68 yards on 3 receptions, one of them being a touchdown. Isaiah McKenzie had 31 yards on 2 receptions and a receiving touchdown. And Dawson Knox finished with 27 yards on 4 receptions and a touchdown. 4 different receivers with a touchdown. Way good job by Josh Allen of spreading the love, even though we did lose 1 fumble on the day. On the defensive side of the ball, Micah Hyde was their leading tackler. He had 12 tackles on the day. Levi Wallace had 10. Their elite linebacker Tremaine Edmonds would finish with 7 tackles on the day, as the Bills were able to record a sack the entire game. Micah Hyde, in addition to his 12 tackles, he finished with an interception, and Tre'Davious White, to go along with his 4 tackles on the day, he finished with an interception as well. With this win, the Buffalo Bills are sitting at 9-3 at the top of the AFC East, 1 game ahead of the Miami Dolphins. And with this loss, the San Francisco 49ers now drop to 5-7, which is the worst record in the NFC West. They're 1 game behind the 3rd place Arizona Cardinals, and each team has 4 games left in the season. And mathematically, the San Francisco 49ers are not out of the playoff. They're not out of the playoff chase just yet. That's what's going on with the NFL, and of course, Week 13 isn't officially over until the Cowboys play the Ravens at 8:05. The Cowboys are 3-8. The Ravens are 6-5. Let's see what happens for the Ravens today to see if they can try to improve their position in the AFC North, as the Cleveland Browns are starting to get away from them. Jumping really quickly to college basketball to show you what's been going on, especially after last night's game. The only ranked game was 19th ranked Richmond beating unranked Wofford 77-72. Jacob Gilliard finished with 18 points, 5 rebounds, and 6 assists to help Richmond go 3-0 on the season. They still have yet to lose. Looking at today's games, 8th ranked Creighton will play against 5th ranked Kansas in a Big East Big 12 battle on ESPN at 5 o'clock. At 6 o'clock, 12th ranked Tennessee is hosting unranked Colorado. Tennessee has yet to play a basketball game. Colorado is 2-0. At 7:30 on ESPN, following the Creighton-Kansas game, 3rd ranked Iowa will host 16th ranked UNC on ESPN at 7:30. At the same time on ESPN2, 1-1 Notre Dame will host 22nd ranked 3-0 Ohio State. At 9 o'clock on ESPNU, 15th ranked Virginia Tech will host Penn State. And at 9:30, 10th ranked Duke will host 6th ranked Illinois for the ACC Big Ten Challenge on ESPN. At the same time, 21st ranked Rutgers will host unranked Syracuse at 9:30 on ESPN2. Those are the big games for today, especially when it comes to college basketball. And last but not least, taking you into the first day of the 6th match day of the Champions League for this season, just to show you where every team stands. Today will be the matchups between groups E, F, G, and H. This will be the last matchup just to see who advances to the round of 16 in the Champions League. The top 2 teams from each group will advance to the round of 16, where it's selected by random draw who they will play, and they will play 2 legs each round until the final to decide who is the winner of the Champions League tournament. Whoever and the 2 teams that make the bottom of their groups will end up getting relegated to Europa League, where they will compete with the 16 teams that qualify for that. So it's 32 teams to start off, and eventually at the very end they will have a winner of the Europa League. But going through Group E's matchups, first off, the team that's leading the group, Chelsea, is going to play Krasnodar at 3 o'clock. Chelsea has already clinched they haven't clinched the top spot, but they have clinched a spot in the knockout rounds. A draw or a win here could see them finishing with the best record in that group. They're going to face off against one another at 3 o'clock. And then the other game will be between Sevilla and Stade Rennes, and that game is going to take place at 3 o'clock. Sevilla has already clinched a spot in the table. Stade Rennes, they have the worst record in the table. If they win, they could tie Krasnodar, I guess. But this will be a very big... I don't expect Sevilla to really bring out their big guns because they've already clinched, but Group B is already settled, and that they're just playing these games just to play them, just to finish the group. And if Chelsea wins, they can get the best spot in that group. In Group F, Borussia Dortmund will end up facing off against Zenit St. Petersburg at 12:55, and then Lazio is going to play Club Brugge at 12:55 as well. Both these games coming from the same group. Looking at how that table sits, how it stands, Borussia Dortmund is currently mathematically they haven't secured a spot for themselves in the league. A win or a draw can do so, or a Lazio or a Bruges or I guess if Lazio and Bruges, because they have to play each other, Borussia Dortmund has already secured a spot in Champions League. If they both draw, then Borussia Dortmund makes it in. If Bruges beats Lazio, Borussia's in. If Lazio beats Bruges, Borussia Dortmund is in with their 10 points. And like I said, it's just a big game between Lazio and Club Bruges because the winner of this game, I think if it draws, then Lazio gets the win. But if they both whichever team wins will get a chance to advance with Borussia Dortmund out of Group F into Champions League. In Group G, Barcelona is gonna play Juventus. This will be the only matchup this year, or at least this season, in which Cristiano Ronaldo for Juventus will face off against Lionel Messi and FC Barcelona, possibly in Messi's final year in Barcelona. So this is going to be a very big game. The winner of this game may decide, or even though the winner of this game doesn't decide who wins the group, both teams have already advanced. But of course, a lot of this is just to see two of the greatest soccer players in the sport's history face off against one another. This game between both these players is going to be at 3:00, and of course the other game in this group, Dynamo Kiev versus Ferencváros, will be at 3:00. And then looking at Group H, where three teams are all sitting with 9 points in the table. We're going to see how that's going to go. Istanbul Basaksehir sitting at the bottom are going to face off against PSG because Man U and RB Leipzig are going to face off against one another. PSG, with a win here, will secure a spot for them in Champions League. If RB Leipzig RB Leipzig will play against Manchester United, and because Manchester United, PSG, and RB Leipzig all have 9 points, it's very interesting just to see how the table will be formed today. Because PSG plays Istanbul Basaksehir, who have only 3 points. They've lost 4 of their 5 games in the table. A win versus Istanbul Basaksehir is what PSG needs to advance, considering they were third in the table as late as about the 4th match day. If Man U and RB Leipzig tie one another and PSG loses, then both Manchester United and RB Leipzig will advance. But no matter what, if PSG ties with Istanbul Basaksehir, it will come down to Man U and RB Leipzig, and they will have to fight one another. And it looks as though the winner of that game will advance. And the way RB Leipzig and Man U have been playing, I can very well see this going down to the wire. Great teams, great matchups between groups E, F, G, and H. But we're going to see how that all transpires. And of course, I'm going to preview and following today's matchups, tomorrow I'm going to preview the final match day for Champions League. But with that said, I appreciate you once again for listening in. It is Tuesday, December 8th, 2020 out here in this quarantine. I'm James Sims. I hope all is well. I hope everyone stays safe. And as soon as everything's done today, I'll get back to you tomorrow. Thanks once again, and peace out.